Broke up with my controlling girlfriend after she manipulated our entire friend group. Now she's targeting my social life with her healing journey. My girlfriend, 17F, and I, 19 male, used to be the power couple in our friend group. We started dating in September last year around her birthday, and we only met for the first time about 3 or 4 months prior. We weren't perfect by any means, but we normally kept the fighting to a minimum and worked it out and moved on usually by the next day. We used to go on dates 2 or 3 times a week and I always paid for our dates. She doesn't have a job, and the gas for the 45-minute drive to her house, but I didn't care because always had a lot of fun and I felt she was worth it. Also, her parents are divorced and she goes to her dad's house out of state every August. The other character in my story is my best friend, we'll call her Jay. Jay and I have been best friends since we were little kids. I've known her for almost a decade and she's the one who introduced me to GF to begin with. Jay and GF have also been friends for a very long time. Now the story. A few months ago, I had heard that there was some tension going on between Jay and GF that was making their friendship difficult. When I heard, I made it a point to stay out of it as much as I could because I felt it didn't concern me. Of course, being the best friend and the boyfriend, I would often hear them both rant about the other person and would kind of act as a mediator. At the time, I had no idea how bad it had gotten between them and I just thought they needed to get stuff off their chest and vent, which was fine with me. It came full circle when one night after I got home from work at around 2 a.m., tired as balls, to GF wanting to watch a movie, we would simultaneously watch a movie over the phone as a kind of movie date because she lives 40 minutes away, as we normally did almost every night. A lot of irrelevant stuff happens here and I don't want to bore you, but basically at some point I made a harmless joke about humans the size of dinosaurs. To which she completely overreacted and started crying and shouting at me, "Why would you say something like that?" and such. I was just trying to calm her down when she called me a narcissist who only uses people for their own personal gain, demanded we have a break and to not even bother coming over to her house on Saturday. At this point it was 5 a.m. and it's the first time I've cried myself to sleep since I was in middle school. Naturally, since we had never had a fight that severe before, I hit up Jay to ask if she'd be down to hang out. I just wanted some help getting some stuff off my chest and venting about what I did wrong. For whatever reason, after calling for a break, GF proceeds to call and text me several times a day saying she's sorry and that she didn't mean what she said. I don't answer any of her messages at all. A few days after our fight, me and Jay finally get a chance to hang out for a bit. We go to a local restaurant and I just break down almost to tears about how much I fucked up and that I ruined our relationship. At which point Jay says that she also has had some bad times, showing me texts and screenshots of GF completely overreacting and lashing out at her for minor things, and says she always says she's jealous of me because she doesn't have any friends, but this is how she treats her friends. We spend a bit just talking about GF and how she can be immature at times, but at the end, Jay apologizes for many of the things she said, saying, "I know she's your girlfriend and you care about her, so I'm sorry if the things I said were rude, but I just thought you should know." Also mind that GF was still calling/texting for a large part of this. Having gotten my emotions out of my system, I feel the courage enough to finally answer the phone only 4 days into this week-long break. It was mostly just GF apologizing for the things that she said and that she loves me. I say it's fine, but please just be more careful with what you say when you get angry. You really hurt my feelings, and she promises to do better. Cut to the next day, she tells me about how she had to give some friends a ride around town but felt they were just using her for her car. I make a joke about how she should sign up for Uber, then she would at least get paid for it, to which she responds by calling me an asshole and hanging up the phone. She apologizes a few hours later and I can't find it in me to not forgive her. About a week or so after the big fight, GF finds out that me and Jay hung out during the break and she goes ballistic, shouting and crying at me, all the while I'm just patiently waiting for her to finish to tell my side of the story. She apparently didn't hear or care for what I had to say and made me apologize for going to see Jay and to promise to never talk to or see her again. Thinking that the best way to calm her down would be to agree, I apologized and she said, "Well, it's about time." That's all I wanted to hear. And saying about how she feels like a weight has been lifted off her shoulders. While that's going on, I'm still trying to process what exactly is going on, basically in a state of shock. She asked me how I was feeling and I just absent-mindedly said, "I'm glad you're happy, hun. That's what I always wanted," and went to sleep shortly after. Naturally, I consulted friends and family over the whole ordeal for advice and they always said something along the lines of she's being way too controlling and not letting you have your own life. She can't and shouldn't have an iron grip like that on you, so I continued my life as normal. Me and Jay didn't talk too much to begin with and we only really hung out very rarely before any of this, but I still had her on social media. QGF going through my Snapchat and Insta messages and getting mad when she saw me and Jay were talking about movies and stuff. She demanded to know why I still had her on my socials and proceeded to shout and cry and start yet another fight, almost verbatim to the previous one. These kinds of fights, as I call them, occurred several times over the course of the next few weeks, almost to the point where I could predict them hours beforehand, and usually included her threatening to break up with me at least once. It all blew up on the 4th of July. GF gets along super well with my parents and my folks love her despite some language barriers with my mom not speaking very much English. I had invited her over to my house for the grill lunch my dad was making and things seemed to be going well. Quick side note, I'm Hispanic and GF is blonde with blue eyes. We eat a lot of carne asada and Mexican burgers, and my dad puts on Spanish songs about people who move to the US and are about how weird and wacky it is compared to Mexico. Think like a Bo Burnham comedy song. At some point, GF excuses herself to the bathroom. A long time passes before she doesn't come back, and I go inside to check in on her. I find her sitting on my bedroom floor in tears. I rush over to comfort her and ask what's wrong. She says that she feels ostracized from my family because the only people that she can comfortably talk to are me and my older sister, even though my dad does make an effort to have a conversation with her through his accent. Moreover, she felt offended at the music my dad was playing and felt that it was making fun of America. I finally managed to calm her down when she asks if she can check my Snapchat messages while she's at her dad's house. I asked why, and she said, I just feel like if Jay was here instead of me, then your party would go so much better. I'm getting tired of constantly having these fights, so I pull back and say I should have known that's what this is. About to which she explodes into tears and we have yet another fight. I finally managed to calm her down and convince her to watch a movie with me and my sister. My family is big on music and we were all excited to see Hamilton on Disney+. Eventually, she gets bored of watching about halfway through the show and says that we should go get fireworks. I make a weak attempt at trying to continue watching the show and then cave. It's about 9 p.m. so we go to the local Walmart only to find that their firework tent is closed. This makes her unreasonably angry and I can tell that we're about to have another fight. I tell her that we can check out a local dollar store and maybe get some sparklers. On the way there, she tries to start a fight yet again, but I'm just focusing on getting the sparklers to keep her happy. When we get to the dollar store, things are tense between us, only to find that this place is also closed and this sets her off. She starts talking about how I never do anything for her and over the past few weeks she doesn't know if I'm happy or not. I say, why wouldn't I be happy? And she says, because you're stressed out about this thing between me and Jay. And I respond with, of course, why didn't I see it before? I'm so stupid to think it wasn't about her. I'll spare you the details, but it eventually led to GF straight up calling Jay in the middle of the fight and asking her if I'm happy. Jay, who is also busy celebrating July 4th, responds with, I haven't talked to him in a while. My girlfriend then proceeds to hurl a string of insults at Jay, ending with, he isn't allowed to talk to you or text you or hang out with you at all, at which point I snatch the phone out of her hands and hang up and sternly say, that's it. You're done. I'm taking you home. She says something along the lines of, I knew it. You're picking her over me. And for the first time in many years, I shout, GF, you can't keep thinking that the entire world is always plotting to destroy you. I don't know where you got the idea that me and Jay are plotting to attack you, but that's just not true. Now, you should know that this was extremely out of character for me. As you can probably tell, GF is the more emotional and romantic one in the relationship while I try to be more level-headed and grounded one. She says I can't take her home because she left her purse at my house, so I'm forced to go back to my house and we sit in the driveway and continue talking for a bit. I finally tell her that I feel like I'm being torn apart by the two of them and that I feel like I got caught in the middle of a war zone that I never wanted to be a part of. And that I hated the fact that I got dragged into this. At this point, Jay calls back and apologizes to GF for the things she said about GF to me. GF then says, look, we both made our mistakes, but we need to apologize to OP, and they both apologize to me. I'm just trying to hold back my confusion because GF is the only one who actually forced me to talk about what was going on with them in the form of fights. GF is the one who made my part bigger in this than it should have been. GF and Jay say that they'll talk amongst themselves and work something out between them and that they promise to not get me involved anymore. I say fine, I don't care. Do whatever you think is right. And Jay hangs up. GF says she's going to go in for her purse and goes in my house while I wait in the car. I notice she's taking a bit longer than should make sense, but write it off as maybe she went to the bathroom or something. When I see that her purse is literally in the back seat, I panic and rush inside to find her talking to my parents. She's been telling them an abridged version of previous events between me, her and Jay, obviously painting Jay out to be the villain, and apologizes to them and me. We finally head back to her house, and the whole drive there we talk things out and end things on a good note. It's about 2 a.m. I think that it's finally the end of it and I'm just glad it's over. I get home from her house and talk to Jay for a bit. She asks me for my side of the story and asks if I felt like she was using me. No, not really. When you talked about GF, it was obvious that it was just something you needed to get off your chest and out of your mind. But the fights me and GF had, it was almost like it was her goal to get me to hate you and never talk to you again. She's the one who wanted to get an edge over you, she's the one who made it a war zone. I go to sleep a few minutes later and wake up Sunday the next morning to dozens of texts from GF talking about how she started self-harming again and how she feels like a terrible human being. I ask her what's going on, but she simply refused to tell me, and I spend the entire Sunday trying to talk to her and get her to put the box cutter down to no avail. It's not until Sunday night that I get a text FRPM GF's mom saying GF had lost a lot of blood from the cuts and would have to spend a few days in a psychiatric hospital. It's not until a few days later that I learn that while Jay and GF were talking after I left his house on July 4th, Jay had called out GF on every time GF had been controlling or manipulative, and that's why she no longer wanted to be friends. GF eventually gets out of the psych ward and we go out the next day. She's telling me about her time there and showing me the notebooks and papers they made her do while she was there, Imagine that scene from Monsters Incorporated when Boo is showing Sully her toys. I noticed the sight of all this stuff is reminding her of the fact that she went to a psych ward and is starting to stress her out, so I suggest we go out for a drive in fresh air. So we do and eventually drop her off at her house later that day and I go home, narrowly avoiding another fight in the process. Also, it should be noted that she blames Jay for her going to the psych clinic. Cut to a few days after that, she learns that her dog is very sick and asks me to come over to her house for a bit for company. I had worked over 50 hours the previous week and just wanted to spend my one day off at my sister's house watching Criminal Minds and eating pizza and stuff. I tell her yes, of course I'll come over, but it might be a bit later cause I'm going to sister's house. I'll be there around 5:30 or 600, so I go to my sister's house and we're having a grand time, but eventually I lose track of time. At exactly 5:30 GF calls me to ask if I'm on the way. I immediately started apologizing and saying that I'm still at my sister's house but I'll leave right now. It's a 45-minute drive to her house, but she says no, it's okay hun, you can stay. I'll just have to keep myself happy since my time doesn't matter to anyone else and other passive-aggressive stuff to guilt me into going. My sister is understanding and lets me out. The entire drive to her house was basically message after message about how she doesn't want to feel like she's forcing me to come over, and she sends a whole paragraph to my sister apologizing for me leaving. My sister never really liked that. GF always tries so hard to get my family to like her and just says it's fine. I get to GF's house and she is just happy as a bug to see me. We proceed to do normal date stuff, go out to eat, go to a park and relax and stuff. She notices I'm a bit more quiet than usual, because I'm upset she manipulated me to her house, but I just say that I have a stomachache, which wasn't entirely false. On our way back to her house she insists on putting the pictures on my Instagram. For the record, I never post much on Insta, simply because I don't see the reason for it. This has led to some fights about how she gets mad because I don't show her off on my social media, which I rarely use to begin with. I say sure thing hun, just send them to me and I'll post them later. But she's insistent on posting them herself. She forces me to give her the password to my phone, which I had to do to stop her from going through my phone or taking pictures of me while I'm sleeping and posting Tamos. That has happened a few times despite me asking her not to, and posts them. I also noticed that she herself is unfollowing Jay on every social media she can find on my phone, again, without telling me. Luckily I catch her and ask why she's doing that. She says well I don't see any reason why you should even have her. And continues to look through my socials and messages. I know nothing I say can improve things, so I was just waiting for her to finish until she says you should also unfollow all of Jay's friends too. Why? They had nothing to do with what happened. Well, it's obvious that Jay told them and turned them against me, so Therese, no reason you should have still had them. What follows would probably be the most intense fight we've ever had. I'll spare the details, but it lasted for about 2 hours. I had to pee for a large portion of it, and it even got to the point where I had a mental breakdown for the first time in 6 years. I mentioned how I was tired of these stupid Jay fights and I was hoping July 4th would be the end of it, but it wasn't. I had hoped the hospital would be some sort of reality check for us and that things would improve, but here we are arguing about the same exact thing time and time again, and it's just tiring, and I could feel myself getting more and more anxious and stressed out with every fight no matter what I did. I did everything I could to move on from what happened with Jay. I went to work and me and GF went on dates, and the only time Jay was mentioned was when GF starts another fight. I was tired and sick of it. For all the talk she does about how she doesn't hate people or hold grudges or let small things get to her, it's pretty obvious that it does still bother her because she's the only one still angry about the whole deal. Both me and Jay have moved on already. She says obviously I've done a lot of harm to you. I'm sorry hun, it's just that ever since I was in the hospital because of Jay I just can't think straight anymore. I know I've done you wrong, but I promise you I'll be better from now on. I hate the thought that you feel this way because of me. There's a lot more back and forth after this, but I can't remember. I then finally go home and go to sleep. For the next few days, things finally seem to be heading back to normal and it's looking good. Finally we're nearing the present day. A few days ago, I had gotten home from work late one night and called GF as I've always done since we started dating. We watch a movie together and I'm just about to fall asleep when she starts talking about Jay. I sigh and answer her questions as calmly as I can until she starts getting upset about something. This escalates into, say it with me now, another fight. This one goes exactly as can be expected, but things are different. The tone of the fight was more depressing, like we've moved on from anger to sadness. I'm starting to get upset that seems to have forgotten literally everything that happened the previous week and finally snap. Me, I think it's best if we have a short break. GF, almost like she's taunting me. Oh, you want to break up with me? Is that what you want? I'm firm in clarifying that I'm not breaking up with her, I just need a short break. She says that she doesn't want to break and that she doesn't think it'll help either of us. I give up on that idea and tell her that it's late and that I have to get up early the next day. She tries to keep me on the line, but I hang up before she can get another word in. That was this Monday a few days ago. I call her the next day and tell her one more time that I want the break. She says that she doesn't want a break, and I remind her that I didn't want the last break either, but she went through with that. It should be noted that after the first big fight way back in the second paragraph, she came up with guidelines on how we should handle issues between us. The rule she made up for breaks was that even if we're on break we should still have at least one phone call or text a day. Does she not understand how a break works? Also, it's worth pointing out that she said if we ever break up, to not say it's because she was controlling or manipulative. The rules for fights is that neither of us are allowed to shout or curse. So when I called for a break, she asked me what I wanted her to do through the break in terms of calling. I told her you can call or text if you want, I can't guarantee I'll answer though. I told her I love her, and hung up the phone. Mind you, I found it very difficult to even talk to anyone about this because me venting about the relationship is what got us into this mess to begin with. But the people I did talk to about it all told me that she was very toxic for me, and even my sister's friends, total strangers, were telling me to dump that crazy bitch. I feel things have gotten just a smidge more complicated since she found out her dad literally has corona, and I can't help but feel bad for calling a break while her dad is sick. But I honestly feel like it was the right thing to so. I'm tired of being a pushover, but I'm unsure if I'm able to go through with it. Again, sorry for the long read, Therese. No way I could feasibly TLDR this. Sorry. Also, I'm leaving out other things she has done. Like when she wanted me to completely change my plan to move out of my parents' house just so that she would be able to live with me, even though she has no job and procrastinates her schoolwork for months at a time. To my knowledge, she hasn't even started looking for one. Keep in mind she's 17 and hasn't even started senior year yet. Or on July 3rd, I told her I had to ask my mom if she could come over for 4th of July, and if you can't come over on Saturday then we could do a little date on Sunday instead, to which she started crying about how I was looking for excuses to not see her. Small, petty stuff like that. Update 1. Hey everyone. I didn't expect my last post to get so much attention, and honestly I thought the story had run its course. But no, real life is a gift that keeps on giving, and in my case, that means new drama with my girlfriend, who for the sake of this update I'll just call S, and the whole J situation. So after my last post, I committed to this break even though S spent the next few days trying to redefine what a break even means. She started texting me random memes, then sentimental goodnights, and then links to TikToks about couples surviving rough patches. I ignored most of it. I caved and replied to a couple lighthearted ones but otherwise kept my distance. At this point I just needed space. Still, the guilt gnawed at me. S kept reminding me about her dad having COVID and how the timing couldn't be worse. I was feeling like a terrible person for not being more present. Then, about 3 days into this, J, who I hadn't really talked to except for quick check-ins since the last blow-up, messaged me something weird. Call me when you can. It's about S. My stomach dropped. So I called. J sounded tired, like, emotionally hungover if that's possible. She told me S had added her to a group chat that included 3 mutual friends, one of whom I barely know, and started unloading on all of them, trying to get them to hear her side about the split and convincing them that I was emotionally cheating with J. The whole group chat blew up. Our friend Sam called S out pretty bluntly, asking why she always weaponized her feelings and trauma. S took offense and rage left the chat, but not before threatening to block everyone. I was stunned. My plan was literally just to take a breather from the arguments. I hadn't even officially broken up with her, and she's tossing nukes left and right, recruiting allies, painting me as a villain. After that, things spiraled. I get a barrage of texts from mutuals, half of which are genuinely checking in to see if I'm okay, and the other half sounding suspiciously like they've been convinced I'm the devil. One girl, Kelly, even DMs me saying, "I thought you were different, dude." Kelly and I have barely ever spoken. Feeling seriously burnt out, I spent 2 days doing nothing but working, sleeping, and reading Reddit updates where people say, just break up already. But I was genuinely worried about S, especially after all the self-harm stuff, so I planned to call her after a couple quiet days and just talk. Set the record straight, at least on the break/breakup question. S, however, had other plans. That Friday, I woke up to about 70 notifications. Someone had tagged me in an Instagram story. S had posted a multi-slide Instagram memoir/manifesto, complete with dramatic black and white selfies and quotes from Lana Del Rey about lost love and betrayal. No names used, but enough people knew she was talking about me and Jay. She hinted at being used as a therapist, being second choice, and watching people pick their real love and never stand up for you. She sprinkled some choice words about fake friends, clearly at Jay, and ended by saying she was done being walked on. 30 DMs from people, a few classmates, Jay, and S herself. S's message was just a single line, "I'd what's left." Honestly? I snapped. I called her, and when she answered, sounding weirdly upbeat, I told her flat out we needed to talk immediately and I wasn't comfortable with our issues being aired on social media for everyone to dissect. She tried to claim it was just her being artistic and coping, but I told her it was childish and hurtful, not just to me but to our whole group. Then she started crying, saying she just had no one, that she understood if I wanted to break up, but she was lost and her dad might have to go to the hospital for COVID. At this point, I was angry, sad, and still didn't want to abandon her when things were rough at home. My gut said to end it, but I told her I'd come see her that afternoon and we could talk. I probably shouldn't have gone. When I got there, her little brother let me in. Her dad was quarantining in his room upstairs, her mom was out. S was in her room blasting Phoebe Bridgers and cleaning compulsively. I sat down. She gave me this haunted look and said, "I want to try to fix this, but I'm scared you don't want to." I told her honestly I cared about her, but she'd crossed some major lines. She started pacing, crying, arguing that she didn't know what else to do if she couldn't control things. I basically told her she needed to get therapy and asked if she was still seeing the psych she'd talked to after the hospital. She said, no, they told me I was fine, which didn't seem right. Then, suddenly, her phone buzzes, a text message from J. S reads it out loud. I hope you get real help for your mental health. S loses it, calling J vindictive, blaming her for turning everyone against her, and then says if J can't leave her alone, she'll send her own screenshots so everyone sees what J really did. At this point, I realize S kept old messages, entire years worth, of J venting about mutual friends, some of it embarrassing, some just petty, all out of context. I begged her, please, do not start some social media war. If you care about me, don't do it. For a long moment she's quiet, then she asked, do you think I'm crazy? And for the first time ever, I said, no, but I think you're deeply unhappy, and if you want to get better, you have to stop hurting everyone around you. She shut down, turned away from me, and said, maybe you should just leave. So I did. A couple hours later, she texted me an actual apology, barely 3 lines, but it was the most real message she'd sent in months. She said I was right, she was tired, didn't know why she did what she did, and that she would lay off Jay and everyone else. Meanwhile, the mess rippled through our group. I tried to keep my head down, moved my story to single on Facebook, which I almost never use. S took down the Instagram stories. She defriended nearly everyone except her cousin and one longtime friend. For the first time in months, I actually felt relief. I guess I'd been holding my breath for so long I didn't realize it, until everything stopped for a second. Jay and I went for coffee and talked, not about S for most of it, but about old movies, college plans, dumb stuff that used to be easy. She told me she felt bad for being so harsh with S but that she couldn't do the drama anymore. I told her I was glad she stepped away. It should have ended there. But crackling under the surface, S still had one card left to play. Last night, no kidding, my mom gets a phone call from S's mom. I walk out to find my mom on the porch, looking both worried and a little pissed. Apparently S's mom wanted her to know that S wasn't handling the breakup well and was asking if she could still come visit sometimes, because S just needs closure and still loves me. My mom, ever patient, told her kindly but firmly that maybe some distance was good, and that S was always welcome at our house once things settled. I was mortified and grateful, both. So yeah, S and I are officially, finally, done. Since then, S's Instagram has shifted to healing journey content, quotes, sunset pictures, the usual. She hasn't tried to restart anything beyond one "thank you for everything" text. Jay and a few others are quietly reconnecting, everyone seems low-key exhausted, but the drama is dying down. Looking back, I think S and I got addicted to being a power couple but never learned how to be honest with ourselves. All the social media, the promises, the mutual trauma dumping, it became this endless cycle of guilt, obligation, and drama we couldn't see our way out of. So, for now, I'm just hanging out with my friends, picking up extra shifts at work, and doing the stuff I used to love before all this. I'm not going to say things are wrapped up perfectly. There are still lingering scars, people taking sides, awkward silences when I run into S's old crew at Target, but I feel like, finally, things are inching toward normal. If there's anything wild to add? Maybe this whole situation somehow made my usually reserved older sister my new best friend. She even took me to a concert last weekend, and I realized I'd spent months focused on drama while totally missing out on people who'd had my back all along. Jay is good too, maybe even better, now that the wars are over. I wish S the best, truly. But I think we both needed this crash to hit the reset button on our lives, and if you're ever the mediator in someone's drama, don't be afraid to walk away.